Welcome to the Balanced Growth Show. I am your host, Dr. Travis Perry. I have a special guest with us here today, my friend, Mr. Clifton Brady. Clifton grew up in Mesa, Arizona, and served a 2-year LDS mission in Spokane, Washington, Spanish speaking. He met his beautiful wife, Christine, at USU, and they were married in the Salt Lake Temple. They now have 4 children. He received his doctorate degree in St. Louis, Missouri, and specializes in helping people become who they really are. The majority of his clients suffer from depression, anxiety, and ADHD. He's privileged to lecture at national and international health conferences for 13 years. He has taught with some of the most sought after speakers on topics of health and self improvement. Clifton has an insatiable thirst for studying spiritual topics and shares his insights readily. Clifton, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Travis. This is great.
Absolutely. You really are a friend. Clifton and I have been, we've known each other for years now, but it's so fun to be able to talk about these topics, just in general and really dive into mental health. This is a big part of what I do, help people with balance and
Right.
help them to, have better sense of psychological well-being. So tell us your story. How did you get here? You've taken not the most direct path, so let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you stumble upon what you're doing today?
So you're saying that being a contractor with a business license to build homes is not a natural path into becoming a doctor? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I will say that most business owners have ADD, so you probably have experienced it
Oh,
and
okay.
have dealt with other people. No, this is yeah, absolutely not.
You're
You probably
diagnosed,
didn't.
yeah,
Yeah, you
real
probably didn't
time.
wake up thinking, "Man, I'm going to help these people." So yeah, tell us like what
Yeah,
what got you interested in this, man?
I'll do the brief version. My grandma was a very stubborn lady. She must have been a redhead, like some that we both know. But yeah, so her husband, my grandpa, was dying at 30 years old. They sent him home with arsenic and said, "Hey, if this doesn't kill you, it might help you. We have no idea. Get your life in order because he's gonna die." And she said, "Bleepity bleep, no, that's not gonna happen." And kind of a hell and damn lady kind of person. She's like, "You're not dying on me. We have 4 kids." And so she went to work and figured it out. And I dare say she had a couple PhDs in nutrition and all kinds of different sciences because of her study into health. And because of her saving my grandpa's life, and he lived to 90 plus years old,
Wow.
that I got the benefit of that. So when I was growing up, we had healthy everything. I was the only person in my chiropractic school of 100 kids in my class or adults. I was the only one that never had a medication and never had a vaccine. And I'm not saying you should or should not do that. Don't do what I do, but you need to find out for yourself what's right. And so that's kind of how this all came about. Unfortunately, I had a fire in my practice while I was practicing in Tennessee, which caused me to think outside the box. I'm like, do I really want to be in an office the whole rest of my life? Do I want to see patients in person? I'm a personable person, but do I really like overhead? Do I really like hiring and firing people and insurance? And the answer was no, 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 no. I don't like any of that. And then when my brother took his life, suicide, I realized, you know what? I know that there's an answer out there for those who are struggling. And so the combination of not being in an office and helping people with some real serious issues was the impetus of all of that.
You've shared with me about your brother to some extent and your grandmother. Do you think that these these challenges in life have really helped you look at things in a different way? I mean, obviously you're years removed from these things, and they're still painful and it's hard for you. But tell us about why do you think some of these challenges may have helped you kind of rethink things and have different mindsets?
Well, yeah, why they've changed I mean, they definitely have. I wasn't considering I knew deep down I didn't want to be in an office, but I didn't know it until the fire happened. So that caused me to think. And I like to pay attention to what's going on in the world because I feel like what stands in the way becomes the way. It's one of my favorite quotes by
Mm.
Marcus Aurelius. And so if something is showing up as a problem and it constantly shows up as a problem, well, either I'm dense which is probably the case, or I just need to make a real quick shift and change and make a pivot. I mean, the whole world pivoted in 2020. I was just doing, my practice online 13 years before all that 2020 stuff happened. So yeah, so why has it made a difference for me? Well, I'm just grateful for it. That's probably the best way I can answer that. I'm grateful that I was paying attention, thankful that there was a fire, not thankful my brother passed away, but it's turned into a big blessing because I would not have put this much time and energy and attention into helping people live a better life if I hadn't have found that out. I probably would be just dealing with headaches, which is fine. Back pain, hey, back pain can be horrific. But I found that, a lot of those things can come from emotional stress. So if I can fix the emotional component and the inflammatory component, then if you go to a chiropractor, which I recommend you do for most cases, then it might actually work and you might actually get better. So yeah, that's how I've just, yeah, it's been a great journey and I'm grateful for every one of those challenges that have come along the way.
Appreciate you mentioning that and that quote. I love that. I love that. That the challenge becomes the way, right? There's a movie out that just reminds me of this. That is about families and kind of their resilience. And the dad in the movie, I don't want to spoil it, but basically tells the son, son, your family's not in the way; they are the way. Like
Yeah.
sometimes
Right.
our
Yeah.
sometimes our challenges, it is the direction we need to go. I can think of that with my wife's health diagnosis that has caused so much change in our life. It led to looking at vaccinations, the food we eat, how we school our kids, and our mindsets have just completely changed because of the
Yeah.
challenges.
Yep.
So I love that mindset and a great example of learning through the challenges. Tell us now that you've you kind of led us into this world like you're a chiropractic doctor. I mean, just the challenge of having the practice burned down. You could have said, "That's enough. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm going someplace else." But you use that to kind of redirect and refocus. What's your focus now? Well, tell us a little bit about how, this focus on mental health and obviously the why they're connecting with your brother, but tell us a little bit about who you serve and
Okay.
what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, just a little bit of clarity. I mentally burnt the practice down after as a little smoke fire. So I could have went back to practice, but I took that as a, you know what? I don't need to do this. This is not how I'm going to help the world. I could help a few hundred people in the city of Tennessee where I was practicing in Franklin, but I could help hundreds of thousands if I made a different approach. And so when I attracted, and I believe I attracted an opportunity to meet a doctor who's helping people with one protocol. And it was making such profound and significant differences that I decided to go just full on into that. So I helped some family members with panic attacks and anxiety and depression. And of course, I don't treat or cure or diagnose these diseases. I just make sure their brain works, and then their doctor says, "Oh, you no longer have depression." It's not my fault. I take no credit, except no blame. I just want to make sure their brain and body's working well. So that was the first shift that I made. To date, I've helped thousands of people in multiple states. I have clients in 40 different states in multiple countries. And with that success, I have found that there's a lot of other disgruntled nurse practitioners, different physicians assistants, even medical doctor, like multiple people that are healthcare professionals are not happy. In fact, there was a study done in 2022, I believe it was. So well after the pandemic had been, peaking and coming back down, basically, 80% of nurse practitioners were burned out and half of them were going to leave the profession within the year, according to the study. That's a lot of people making like make. I talked to one lady and she goes, "Yeah, I'd rather work at Target. I'm done." I'm like at Target.
After all that education, though, I mean,
Right.
we're at Target. Oh,
You can make a
wow.
lot of money at Target. If you work at Target, great, but not if you have a degree and you've spent all these years and money and all the resources and stuff. Your gift to the world is probably not Target at this point. And so I'm seeing that and I'm going, you know what? I've got a way to help people. I've been successful at it. And so, yeah, now what I'm doing mostly, I still have patients and clients that I call them clients because it's a better way of describing my health coaching, but teaching other healthcare professionals to break free from the system, to don't not let insurance dictate what they do anymore. Because if you're not doing medicine, then you don't need to worry about insurance because it's not covered. You don't have to worry about the doctor telling you what to do because you're not doing medicine. And so, so to do that in a legal and ethical way, I feel like is the way of the future. I don't think people are going to go to their doctor anymore. They're going to go to ChatGPT. Like last night, for example, I fixed the starter. I have a friend help me replace a starter in a car. I'm like, this is cool. This is great. It starts right up. And then it just barely makes it home. I'm going, what in the heck's going on here? So I go on ChatGPT, no joke, in 5 minutes, probably 3 minutes. Like it was fast. I knew exactly what was wrong with my car. I found the perfect video without even having to go to YouTube, which was a YouTube video, but I found it through ChatGPT. I found the parts and for like $17, which was probably going to be a $200 or $300 because I've had someone else do this fix before. It's a fuel pump that went out. Uh, $200 or $300. I'm going to be fixing it for $20 or have someone else do it for $100 and pay them, hourly to fix it.
Right.
Like, why are we going to go to a doctor or a mechanic anymore? We will for some things, but no, things are changing fast. And so I want to be in front of that wave of letting people help themselves and get their power back.
I love that. Yeah, you're changing with the times. You can see the writing on the wall, the technology that's increasing. Yeah, I couldn't say more about this. I've had several health practitioners on that are using various models to try to combat what's coming, right? So I love that. You're a forward thinker. Talk to us about your framework then, about actually how you help these individuals and these clients of yours that struggle. Because I know you've helped some of my clients, and it's been great to see their improvement. Talk to us a little bit about what you do.
Okay. So I've talked about two different groups. You want to talk about like those who have anxiety and depression or those who are healthcare providers?
Yeah, let's talk about anxiety, depression, kind of the mental
Okay.
health aspect, because
Okay.
I'm sure, the medical providers they're going to be doing similar things to what you're doing, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that framework.
Okay. So the first part about this is it's not rocket science to think that if you don't eat lunch this afternoon, you're going to feel a little edgy. Like right now, it's 2 o'clock our time that we're recording this. If we didn't eat lunch, we're not as focused, not as concentrated. We don't have as much energy. We can't remember words as easily. Like we're not firing on all cylinders. But if we have lunch, we feel great. In fact, we've called it hangry. For many people call, oh, I'm hangry. Well, it's not rocket science. You need three things: air, food, and water. If you don't have air, you're going to die. In fact, very quickly, if someone's ever drowned before, like you grew up in California, what's it like to almost feel like you're going to drown? It is scary, beyond scary. Panicky, overwhelmed, can't think, can't focus. Do you care what you're wearing? Like you don't care about your hairstyle or nothing at that point. It's like I'm
Right.
going to die. And that's what people feel like. They feel like they're drowning in real life and they have that anxiety and that panic feeling and that constant undercurrent, to use the same analogy, that undercurrent of just like nothing's going well. And frankly, sometimes it's just the basic biology of nutrients to the brain. Now, I use an air analogy, but the same thing with nutrients. And water doesn't seem to have quite the psychological effect, but you have to have all three to live. If you don't have all three, you're not going to function and eventually die. So after understanding that and finding a protocol to drive those nutrients into the brain, we've had such significant changes that now I'm like, oh, now let me look at the studies behind this protocol. And having studied on anxiety, depression, PTSD, OCD, and all those things, I'm not treating that. It's just been studied for it. And so that's how I've been helping people with the mental challenges, the focuses, the concentrations, and just that undercurrent problem. The second part I realized is okay, let's bring down the stress levels. Now, even though your whole world might be in chaos, you can still feel calm, kind of like the duck. You're paddling underwater, but you look and that's what I'm helping people do. They just feel okay. And yet things aren't okay. And it's a pretty crazy feeling. The second thing I like to do is bring down the inflammation. Uh, I could do that first or second, doesn't really matter. But the inflammation in the brain is causing a lot of problems. There's studies that show that they're using anti-inflammatories for depression. Well, why would they do that if it's not helping? Well, obviously it's helping because inflammation, the inflamed brain, I think there's some books on the topic, or inflamed, gut too. Any kind of inflammation in the body is going to cause some problems. I've talked to literally thousands of moms and dads, and they tell me as I'm talking to them, oh yeah, they have inflammation in the form of allergies, or they have a root canal they need to fix, or that they've got they're constantly sick, or they have sinus problems, whatever it is. There's usually something else going on, and so that's a two-pronged approach. And I haven't even talked about gut yet or hormones, but those two seem to be 80%, if not higher, of the problem as far as just getting people back on track.
Yeah, that's really, really fascinating. I mean, I've studied, uh, you know, most mental health conditions, taught it at various universities, have been helping individuals, not necessarily diagnosed, but those who, I can obviously tell their symptoms, right, of what's going on, maybe depressed or anxious or, super stressed. Which tend to be the common cold of mental illness, right? Those are
Yeah.
typically associated with other things. But the fact that you've connected inflammation to mental health seems pretty cutting edge to me. It seems pretty unique. But as a chiropractic doctor, were you seeing patients before in clinic, in office? And were you starting to connect this? Or is this something that you found after the fact?
It came later, actually. I had several people doing well on the micronutrient component to help them feel happy. But when I ran into a roadblock, I'm going, what's going on? There's got to be a problem. So I looked at one of the studies with a particular protocol that I use for micronutrients, and it talked about a study on candida. This
Mm.
lady was doing, she had a diagnosis of depression, anxiety. For 2.5 years, she was feeling phenomenal by getting the micronutrients in her brain. And then she had a flare up of candida. So they gave her like olive leaf extract and maybe some probiotics. I can't remember. It's not that hard to knock it down. To get it away completely, there is some challenge for some people, but to get it under control, very simple without medication. And they did. And so they got it down, and then she was symptom free again with her anxiety and depression for 6 months, and then they ended the study. As soon as I saw that, I had remembered that my mom, she had the same thing happen, but it was with a cat bite. She I love my mom, but sometimes you don't want to talk to people that are hell and damn, and I hate everybody and everybody hates me. That's not my mom, but that's how she was talking and living her life. I want to think big thoughts, happy thoughts. Everything's going to be okay, even though it's not okay. Like have a optimistic outlook. She wasn't that kind of person, but after I helped her with these protocols, she was so delightful. I loved talking to her. And then she got bit by a cat right here on that soft tissue, and her hand ballooned up and she almost lost her hand. It was so infected. And instantly she was angry and mad and frustrated and overwhelmed, and everybody hated her and she hated everybody. I'm like, what? And what happened to my mom? She went into a psychotic episode, is what it felt like. Well, it was one. I mean, I can't diagnose it because I'm not a medical doctor, but I know what psychotic looks like. And anyways, she got the antibiotics, which is fine. I mean, it was so scary that, hey, go medical if you got to get rid of it. And it got it under control. Within a week, she was happy again. And then I remembered a friend in Alabama, a new friend. He had psychosis. He was suicidal. He told me later on, he says, I had the gun, I had the letter, I had the thing, I knew when it was going to happen. And then his mom said, talk to Dr. Brady. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't need that. I don't want that. I don't need that. Talk to your psychiatrist, do whatever. Um, but when I found that out, I sent him just like a $16 bottle of yeast product to get rid of candida. And no joke, Travis, within a week, he was speaking at another person's funeral when he was like literally not functional at all. Then he goes on a
Wow.
service mission for like 2 months for his church because he's a pastor, or at the time he was a pastor, a servant pastor or whatever. Anyways, he's a reverend. I'm using the terminology way off. I think he's a pastor, not a reverend. Anyways, he goes on a service mission, comes back. A girl that he's been wanting to date his entire life. He's 40 years old. They start dating, they get married, and they invite me to a Cabo wedding within the year. He went from I don't want, and now he's 11 years SADS free. He calls it sadness, anxiety, depression free, and it was all because that candida and the nutrients in his brain were lacking. And so yeah, that's how I discovered it. It wasn't in my practice, unfortunately. I wish I had made the connection while I was doing back work. And I mean, I knew about gut health and things back then too, but man, did I had no idea how devastating a inflammatory problem could be for that study, for my mom, and for that pastor friend. I mean, it literally saved his life, and it's not, I can't take credit for it. It's just his body took care of it.
Sure. Wow. Wow. I talk about SAD all the time, standard American diet,
Right?
SAD, stress, anxiety, depression.
Yeah.
So many people are not living up to their true potential because they're stuck on, yeah, exactly right, in SADs, right? I've seen it, I've studied it a lot. So we've talked a little bit about kind of your protocol and things. What would you say is like the most important thing that you do to help people with that framework of like understanding inflammation and everything? Like what, or even how you come across finding out where the inflammation is. Give us a little bit of insight into kind of the most important piece.
I have a lot of friends that are functional medicine doctors, and they take blood, and they do the scans and the panels and everything like that. And I don't have I just don't need to do that. I don't, and the thing is because it doesn't change my protocol. I get results without that information. And it's not because I'm some brainiac and know all the things. I don't know all the diseases. I don't need to know because I don't treat those things. I just hear from them, okay, what is the level of anxiety and stress that they're going on? And and is there anything else going on in your life that you think is or inflammatory related? And I have a list of like 38, 40 things that I send to them, and they just look at it, and their gut feeling tells them. In fact, most of them don't even have to look at it. Like, yep, it's because of this. And it's funny, we all have that gut feeling, but I'm trying to just let them dictate what's wrong. And sometimes they miss it. Sometimes they forgot to tell me, like that friend, pastor. I drilled him for 30 minutes and he finally says, oh, I have athletes and jock itch. Like, why didn't you tell me? He goes, well, because I'm using the medication and it's taking care of it. And he's like, oh, shoot, but it's not. Like the internal part is still there. The external, manifestation of it on his feet and his groin are gone, but it's still brewing inside. So that's my format. It's very simple. What's the severity of your child or the person? And then I dictate the protocol accordingly, like how much nutrients they're taking and stuff. And then is there an inflammatory component that we need to address now or maybe later? It's not complicated. If someone wants to do blood and spend extra money, go for it, but it won't change my protocol. I get results without having to go down that road.
Yeah, wonderful. It's and sometimes people
Or even change their diet,
specifically,
by the way. And I know you and I
yeah.
love good
Oh
diet,
yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah.
why not get them feeling good first? And then you
Yeah.
have the energy to change your diet, the desire to go bike riding, the desire to go swimming and running and playing and having fun. Like, if you don't have the energy to do it, the last thing you should be doing is exercising because you don't have any reserves. I think it's 80% of our energy is used for pumping your heart, thinking, and just living. You have 20% left. And we don't have 20% left as a society because of the bad diet and all those kind of things. So we need to get that 20% back so that you can change your diet, exercise. Anyways, I interrupted you, but that's
No,
why
it's
I
good.
don't go that route first because it's you're chasing
Yeah.
your tail.
Yeah.
When in some cases, changing the diet, people are dedicated, excited, and motivated, and they'll do it more than 3 days. Most people are not that, won't do it long enough for it to even matter. And so I like to help them feel happy first, then start changing your habits, and it'll be a lot easier.
Yeah, and yeah, you and I know we've talked a lot about the standard American diet. We've talked about solutions and things in the past, and I like the approach of let's get them feeling better right away so that they can begin to do some of the longer term. And honestly, we could spend a whole hour or two talking about traditional medicine in America and what it's done, what it's not done, and I know we think a lot, very similar on these topics. But sometimes that's where these, the medication, the pills, the big pharma, and everything have come in. I think they've had the same goal. They've had the same goal. Let's help people feel better. Unfortunately, there's a lot of side effects, addictions, problems with big pharma and everything else. I know this isn't the big pharma show, but I love the fact that the solutions that you're offering to people are usually, they're natural. They're typically something that is not going to be the drugs and medication that
Right.
we're fed. So, talk to us a little bit about what can people do? What can people do if what are the one, two, three things that you would say? Man, if you're struggling with anything on the sad spectrum, the stress, anxiety, depression, these common colds of mental health, or anything really, really um, involving bipolar. You mentioned schizophrenia and some other things. What are the one, two, three things that people ought to be considering or doing?
Okay. So if they're on their own, and think of it this way. So if everybody that is a professional that goes to the highest level has a coach. So if you want to get to the highest level, then you need to have someone have a different perspective because they can see in you potential that you don't see, but also they can see the problems faster than you can see them. So getting a coach, a mentor, health coach or whatever, personal coach, that is the very quickest way to get to the bottom of it. But if you're doing it on your own, I like to use the 80-20 rule in virtually everything. So if you write down what you're, or just even think about what you're eating, what you're thinking, what you're doing, you know right away, yep, it's that alcohol. I'm drinking way too much, or I'm having way too many burgers during the week. I'm eating out too much, or Utah, we don't have alcohol as much as we have ice cream. Ice cream's our alcohol, it seems like. And so, like, they're having ice cream every day. And that might sound silly to some people, but there's so much inflammation in that one bowl that all kinds of things will flare up, the sinuses and the knee pains, the hand pain, all that kind of stuff. So I would say start with the 80-20 rule because 80% of our problems are coming from 20% of the things that we're doing. So you can make one little shift. If you're having 7 sodas a day, then have 6 and then have 5. It's really little teeny steps that'll get you there. But that's why a coach is helpful because a coach will say, yeah, 1 out of 7 is probably not enough. You probably need to get rid of 2, but just give you some perspective and give you some confidence that what you're doing is going to be, make a difference. But really, it's not that hard to make one little change, and you know what that is. You know that thing you're saying to yourself that you're stupid or you're dumb or you can't do it, and who would ever want to listen to me? I want to write a book, but who cares about what I think? Like that's not helpful. And if that's the number one thing that you're saying to yourself, well, then you can transition that into a positive thing. Say, well, instead of, I think it's Noah St. John wrote a book, and I can't remember the name of the title, but he said, instead of saying an affirmation like, I am healthy when you're not, it's a lie. And it feels like a lie. And like, well, lie to yourself until you believe it. Okay. That could be true for some people, but most people feel like it's a lie because I'm sick. Well, if you say, well, why am I healthy? Oh, Totally different question. So now you can start finding evidences during your day of why you're healthy instead of saying, I am healthy and I'm going to prove it and I'm going to push. My perspective is I ask myself questions. So you ask, what can people do? Find out what the 80/20 is in your life that's really making the biggest problem in your personal life, health life, financial life, and then change what you're saying into a positive spin and ask a why question or how come kind of question. How come me and my wife are so in love? If you don't feel in love, we'll start asking that question. Why are we in love? Why does she love me? And you'll start doing things, ding, 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 that makes her love you. You'll become more of a man that she needs in her life because I'll guarantee you, your wife doesn't want to be married to another woman if she's straight. So if you're being a womanly man, feminine man, you might want to look into what you're doing that's not it's not causing that attraction in your life. And same with the ladies. If you're becoming a better man than your man, then maybe make an adjustment and help him become the man he was meant to be and you be the woman that he needs in his life. And some people are going to hate what I just said, but what did I say? Be who you really are, is what I'm saying. And we know what that means in our individual lives. So, man, that was a tangent, but I
Yeah,
feel
I love
pretty,
it.
I feel pretty strongly about becoming your best self.
Yeah, yeah, you do. And I couldn't agree with you more. You and I have had this tangential conversation before, and family scientists, there is a difference between female and male biology and masculine and feminine behavior. And I think you're exactly right. Like be the man that woman needs in your life, and vice versa. That's so needed today. So thank you. But I love what you're talking about, that 80/20. So let's say that individuals are able to figure out where their 80/20 really is. And they really are identifying that, and they're honest with themselves. You call this out, like be honest with yourself. What then? What's the next step?
Well, the first step for me is the little steps that I was talking about, making those little changes. For me, micronutrients has been the biggest key. I use one particular brand, so I'm not trying to sell that, but if you want to know, let's talk. But there are certain nutrients that our brain is just craving, and you're not getting it from the foods. In fact, the guarantee that I can share with you that it's not in your food is pick up a tomato from any place that you're buying it from, unless it's from a garden in your backyard. Does it smell or taste like a tomato? There's no odor. There's no scent. There's nothing. And then when you bite into it, you have to put salt and pepper and all the kind of things because it's just not the minerals and nutrients cause deliciousness, flavor, sweetness, taste, all of that. That's why people pay double, triple the amount of money to go to an organic restaurant, which is a farce too, unfortunately. But let's pretend it was actually grown in a really good way. It tastes better, and that taste is the minerals and nutrients that we're not getting into our brain. So the next step really for me is to get the minerals and nutrients into your brain, however you do it, whether it's through a capsule or it's through like not just any multivitamin out there. In fact, my wife had a normal one, and then she took the one that I recommended and she flipped in just 2 days. She was more delightful, more fun, happier, less agitated. I said stupid things and I didn't get in trouble. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Like every newlywed, every guy needs their wife on this, and every wife needs their guy on something that's helping them be balanced, obviously, balanced and feel confident in who they are. Another next step, it's diet and exercise. I hate to say it, everybody says it, but man, when you're pumping that blood through your veins, your brain is so your brain, it's like 2% of our body weight is the actual tissue of the brain, but it needs 20% of the blood that pumps out of the heart. It goes straight to the brain. That's a very selfish brain, but hey, so pump more blood to the brain by getting out and enjoying life. In fact, as I turned 50, I realized if I want to live a long life, I need to tell my body, I want you to live longer. And by the way I do that is I push myself. I push it hard. Not so hard I hurt myself, but I push really hard. There's tons of studies that show that if you push your heart hard and then relax hard and relax hard, it's called the Norwegian 4x4. You can drop your heart, a 56-year-old heart that's not healthy down to a 30-year-old heart. So that's, so first is the diet, our mindset, and then, pushing your body, cardio. It's huge. It's a big deal.
Yeah, you and I mountain bike together, and so I can attest. I know you're good. You're the man who does this. I've seen you do this. But let's talk about the micronutrient aspect. I don't think this gets talked about hardly at all in most of the health circles that I've been in, and the people I've interviewed, and the research I've done. Talk to us a little bit about that. Expand on that one a little bit.
So I can't remember the podcast I watched, but there is a trend with nutritional psychiatry.
Hmm.
And not to beat up on my colleague friends, but their industry, from what I can see, is dying. Meaning less people are going in that are staying in. So a lot of them are dropping out, and not many are going back in. And I think it's because they're tired, sick and tired of watching people struggle and struggle and struggle and struggle and not really feel awesome because their brain is numbed out from the medications. They're not happy. They're not sad. They're just kind of blah. They're not flourishing and super. Not again. There's some great testimonials of people on medication, but I just don't run across them very often. And so now I even forgot your question. I kind of went into a tangent, but yeah. What was the original question?
No, I mean it's really about the micronutrients.
Oh,
How
micronutrients.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not hearing a lot about it.
So
Yeah,
But there are some circles that are doing nutritional psychiatry. And because they're finding that if the brain is fed, if their gut biome is good, then, and of course their hormones, then you have a chance to live a really vibrant, healthy, happy life. And that's why they're doing the blood to find out if their T levels are good and their estrogen levels and all the things. So they're trying to micromanage each and every one of those nutrients, and there's a lot of technology, possibly AI, that might maybe someday crack that code. But in the meantime, there's just very basic nutrients everybody's body needs. And if it can get into the body, which is another problem, having them in the pill doesn't mean it actually gets to where it needs to go. That's when your brain really wakes up. There was a study done on rats where they took, these rats, both two different rats, they took this group and they ran it through the maze, and then this group through the maze, and they found out how smart or dumb they were. And then they took out the frontal lobe of their brain, which is the reasoning power. And they went through the maze and they were both stupid, just equally stupid, equally smart in the beginning, equally stupid. Then they fed this one, I think it was Purina rat chow. Anyway, some kind of a nutrient for rats. I didn't even know they made Purina rat chow, but they fed them. And then they fed these other ones micronutrients that actually got into the brain. It's the same formula that I use. Well, what was crazy is, well, obviously these rats were, they were dumb. These rats became so much smarter than these rats that they became smarter than themselves. In other words, before the study happened, they were, let's just say their level of smartness was here. After the rat brain was taken out and fed, they were smarter than they were when they started the study. And these rat brains started growing back before they killed them, before they, did the autopsy, I guess.
really.
These rat brains were not growing back.
Whoa.
So the joke is, let's all have a frontal ectomy and then we can regrow our brains and be smarter.
Oh my
But
God.
that's crazy. Well, it's
That is
not that.
crazy.
But it's not. It's just regular biology. This is
Hmm.
not rocket science. All we're doing is giving nutrients to the brain that the brain recognizes, that the glial cells will gladly pull in to feed the neurons so that our brains function. And when you say, I don't feel grounded, I don't think that's an accident. What's in the ground? Minerals, nutrients. If you don't feel grounded, well, then you literally probably should put your feet in the ground because there is a lot of benefits to that too. But we got to absorb them into our bodies, into our mouths, into our stomachs, and get that nutrition to our brain so our brains can wake up.
Dr. Brady, we could be chatting about this for a very long time. And we do. We like to banter back and forth. I think this has been super helpful for individuals out there who are, we're all struggling with this. I mean, every single business owner I've ever interviewed has some stress, has some anxiety, maybe has dealt with depression or never really dealt with it. If not, at least struggles in some aspect with ADD or ADHD. And
Hmm.
this is part of our way of being, and it doesn't have to be, you know, to our detriment. It can be channeled in the right directions. We need entrepreneurs. We need business owners to drive the economy, to create jobs, to make lives better for everybody. I appreciate your drive. I appreciate your ability and your desire to help people. Because I know it stems from your personal experiences with your brother, with your grandma, and just your life in general. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing what you are sharing. You are making a difference. And I can say that not just as your friend, but as a professional who recognizes the work that you're doing. So thank you very much for being here. If you want to leave anybody with just one last thought or idea or a way for them to connect with you, if they'd like to reach out, please do.
Yeah. So the last thought I'd like to share kind of stems around that what stands in the way becomes the way. There's something in your life right now that is just being very obvious, and it's just yelling and screaming at you, make that change. And what's interesting is you might want to have this kind of marriage, and you're like, I want this kind of marriage. It's like, okay, well, this marriage has to fall apart. Not your literal marriage, but the type of marriage you have
Mhm.
has to fall apart so you can get the ultimate marriage you want to have. Or the career that you want. Well, I want this kind of a career. Well, then this one has to fall apart. So pay attention that when you want something really bad, like really bad, better health, better relationships, all the things, what you want is available to you, but what you have has to fall apart. The current you has to die, and like the snake skin has to come off, and it hurts. So don't try to hold on to your current one if you want something else, and hold on to what you really want and just live in that space. And I believe you're going to find the answers to your questions that you're looking for. I believe you're going to get exactly what you really want and not what you currently have that you're holding on to with white knuckle tight grip and saying, "Oh no, I want to keep this." No, you don't. Let go of it. Let someone else have it, give it away, and get the new part. If you want to reach out to me, probably the best way is through LinkedIn. You can find me Dr. Brady or Dr. Clifton Brady. Healthcare Mavericks is another keyword that a lot of people look up, and I'd be happy to message with you. I've actually helped a ton of people just with a free gift of some product. No questions asked. I don't even charge for my time to consult with you. If there's someone in your life that's struggling, let me give you a gift of some health. And if there's a good relationships we build and bond, then maybe we can partner up and help other people too.
Love it. Thank you for being here on the show, Dr. Brady, my friend Clifton. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you've enjoyed this, like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Until next time, remember to live life on purpose together.